For millennia, they have been silent. Their bones, unearthed from the dusty floors of caves and the frozen earth of forgotten landscapes, were the only testament to their existence. These were the Neanderthals, our closest extinct human relatives. They were not the brutish, stooped figures of early caricature, but a sophisticated and resilient people who thrived across Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. Understanding their story is not merely an academic pursuit. It is a journey into our own deep past, a way to comprehend the winding path of human evolution, and to perhaps catch a glimpse of a different version of humanity. They are the other, the one who almost made it, and their fate is inextricably linked with our own arrival on the world stage. Their world was a harsh one, a place of immense ice sheets and formidable beasts. Yet, they endured. They crafted intricate stone tools, hunted enormous prey like the woolly mammoth, and perhaps even cared for their sick and elderly. For a very long time their story was pieced together from fragments of stone and bone, a silent movie played out in the fossil record. We could see where they lived and what they ate. The sequencing of the Neanderthal genome opened a door into a previously invisible world. This ancient DNA is not just a list of genes. It is a historical document written in the language of life itself. It allows us to ask incredibly intimate questions about a people long vanished. By analyzing their genetic code, we can begin to understand their physical appearance, physiology, potential vulnerabilities. The genes for hair and skin pigmentation suggested some Neanderthals likely had red hair, pale skin, freckles, an adaptation to low light, aiding vitamin D synthesis. This genetic time capsule offers extraordinary insights into the health and demography of the Neanderthal population. The DNA recovered across their range reveals a startling truth. Their genetic diversity was remarkably low. This suggests they lived in small, isolated groups scattered thinly across the immense Eurasian continent. Such low diversity would have made them more vulnerable. Harmful genetic mutations could become more common, potentially leading to reduced fitness and a higher incidence of certain health problems. It was as if their entire species was walking a genetic tightrope, with very little safety net to catch them if they stumbled. Furthermore, the DNA allows us to see the world through their immune systems. Scientists can identify genes related to immunity and compare them to our own. These genes tell a story of a long and arduous battle against the pathogens of Ice Age Europe and Asia. They were well adapted to the local diseases and viruses they had encountered for millennia, but this specialization could also have been a double-edged sword. Their immune systems were finely tuned to their environment, but what would happen when they encountered new diseases carried by a new type of human arriving from a distant land? The genetic code holds the clues to this dramatic and ultimately fatal encounter. Perhaps most profoundly, the Neanderthal genome acts as a mirror, reflecting our own evolutionary journey. By placing their genetic sequence alongside that of modern humans, we can identify the DNA that is unique to us. What genetic changes occurred in the Homo sapiens lineage after we diverged from the Neanderthals? The answers point to genes involved in brain development, cognition, and metabolism. It seems that after our ancestors went their separate ways, our lineage underwent crucial changes related to how our brains are wired and how we process energy. The Neanderthal genome, therefore, doesn't just tell us about them. It helps to define the very genetic essence of what it means to be a modern human. Long before the first modern humans set foot in Europe, the continent belonged to the Neanderthals. Their world was a challenging and often brutal one, shaped by the cyclical advance and retreat of massive ice sheets. The landscape was not a uniform, frozen wasteland but a mosaic of environments, dense woodlands during warmer interglacial periods, the vast open expanse of the Mammoth Steppe during colder times. This was a world populated by giants, woolly mammoths with their colossal curving tusks, woolly rhinos, giant deer, and fearsome cave bears. To survive here required immense skill, resilience, and a deep, intimate knowledge of the land and its inhabitants. Neanderthals were supremely adapted to this life. Their bodies were shorter and more robust than ours, a compact build that was excellent for conserving heat in cold climates. Their bones were thick and strong, testament to a physically demanding lifestyle. They were formidable hunters, not merely scavengers. Evidence from ancient kill sites and the chemical analysis of their bones shows they were apex predators with diets rich in large herbivore meat. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Neanderthals and our ancestors evolved on separate continents shaped by different worlds. Neanderthals, a people of the north forged in the ice, forged in the cold of Eurasia. Homo sapiens, a people of the south born under the African sun. Around 60 to 70,000 years ago, a wave of modern humans expanded out of Africa, pushing north into the Middle East. In the sun-drenched Levant, valleys and hills, the two branches met for the first time. A moment of monumental significance, a meeting of two different kinds of human. What happened during these encounters? For a long time we could only speculate. Did they see rivals as enemies? Or a familiar face, a kindred spirit? Archaeology gives few clues, but genetics speaks volumes. Our DNA is unequivocal. They did not just meet, they interbred. The discovery that modern humans and Neanderthals interbred was a profound revelation, forever changing how we see ourselves. The proof is written in the genomes of people with ancestry outside sub-Saharan Africa. About 1 to 2% of modern Europeans and Asians' DNA is Neanderthal. That tiny fraction is a significant functional inheritance, a living genetic echo, a ghost in our machine, influencing our biology in subtle but important ways tens of thousands of years later. These Neanderthal genes are not junk, many are active and crucial. Much of this legacy affects skin and hair. Genes for keratin production come from Neanderthals, skin hair nails. As humans moved into Eurasia's new climates and light, borrowing these pre-adapted genes gave survival advantages. A genetic shortcut for rapid adaptation outside the tropics. Neanderthal influence also shaped our immune system. We inherited alleles, gene variants, that helped recognize local pathogens. Interbreeding immediately boosted immune defenses against new threats. But there is a downside. Some Neanderthal variants are linked to autoimmune diseases and to allergies, where the immune system overreacts. The story continues. Neanderthal DNA connects to many traits in modern humans. Susceptibility to depression, risk of blood clots, patterns of sleep addiction to nicotine. It doesn't make you a smoker, but it can nudge neurological pathways that shape behavior. It's a complex, fascinating picture. The Neanderthal legacy isn't just history, it's an active force shaping billions' health worldwide, a reminder the past never truly disappears. As modern humans, carrying their small but significant dose of Neanderthal DNA, spread inexorably across Europe, the world of the native Neanderthals began to shrink. The Neanderthal world began to fade. It was not an overnight event, not a single dramatic battle, but a slow, grinding decline that played out over 5 to 10,000 years. From around 45,000 years ago, the archaeological map of Neanderthal sites begins to recede. Their territories once reached as far as Spain, and all the way to Siberia. These areas were gradually replaced by the encampments of the newcomers. The final Neanderthal strongholds appear to have been in the south, in places like the Iberian Peninsula, before they too fell silent around 40,000 years ago. For a long time, the leading theory for their disappearance was simple. We, Homo sapiens, were just better. Better hunters, better tool makers, with a more sophisticated culture, and a superior intellect that allowed us to outcompete our ancient cousins for every resource. There is certainly some evidence to support this. The arrival of modern humans in Europe coincides with a flowering of art and technology. The Upper Paleolithic Revolution. The archaeological record fills with fine, delicate blade tools, implements carved from bone and antler, and most spectacularly, the breathtaking cave paintings of animals that still captivate us today. It seemed a clear case of a more advanced culture replacing a less advanced one. However, the new genetic evidence compels us to reconsider this simple narrative. The Neanderthal genome shows no evidence that they were inherently less intelligent. The crucial difference may not have been brain power, but demographics. The DNA tells us the Neanderthal population was already small and fragmented with very low genetic diversity. They were a species in a precarious position long before we arrived on the scene. Modern humans, by contrast, appear to have arrived from Africa in larger numbers, with greater genetic diversity. They were not necessarily smarter individuals, but they were a more robust and interconnected population. This demographic advantage would have been decisive. The final extinction of the Neanderthals was likely not due to a single cause, but a perfect storm of converging pressures. Their low population and lack of genetic diversity formed the backdrop. On top of this, the world itself was turning against them. The climate during their final millennia was exceptionally unstable. One such event, known as a Heinrich event, saw massive flotillas of icebergs break off from the northern ice sheets and flood the Atlantic with cold freshwater. This dramatically disrupted ocean currents and plunged Europe into periods of extreme, bitter cold. This decimated the forests and grasslands upon which both Neanderthals and their prey depended. For a species already on the brink, these climatic shocks would have been devastating. But they were not the only new challenge. The arrival of modern humans brought a new biological threat: disease. The two groups had evolved on separate continents for 500,000 years, developing immunity to different sets of pathogens. It's possible that novel viruses and bacteria swept through the small Neanderthal clans, a pathogen bomb that their immune systems were unequipped to handle. Competition for resources was the final, relentless pressure. Even a small, 1% advantage in hunting efficiency, compounded over thousands of years, would have been enough to gradually squeeze the Neanderthals out. The Neanderthals were not so much outthought as they were outnumbered, their small, flickering flames extinguished by a rising tide. Until finally, somewhere in a cold, lonely cave in Gibraltar, the last Neanderthal took their last breath. An entire chapter of human history had come to a quiet and tragic end.